that finds yourself struggling with getting enough done every day, getting the important things done every day, finding that you are overwhelmed and really quite distracted of about what you really need to be working on in any given day? Well, if so, then this Google Hangout is for you. My name is Kerry Brown, and this is Hangout with Coach Kerry. And today we're doing a recap of the last number of episodes where we've dealt with specific strategies to help you be more productive, to get more done in any given day, and give you more free time, and in fact move your business forward. So with me today, I have one of my Academy members, Kathy Scott, who's going to be assisting me in this episode. So Kathy, why don't you share with the viewers today a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Kerry. Thanks for having me on today. About me, I have a wonderful little business called Niche Travel, and I do two things in my business. One is I do women's tours all over the world, custom, beautifully designed tours to exotic destinations and all sorts of women-centric, amazing activities. And the other thing is I do luxury inbound tourism in Victoria, BC.
Fabulous. Thank you, Kathy. And Kathy, if any of you are of the viewers today love to travel to exotic and interesting locations in a very small custom design group, then Kathy's the person you want to be talking to. So again, today our topic is time management. And in my 16 years as a business coach, I have discovered that time management seems to be one of the biggest issues for people. And so it's curious for me. There's a couple of things going on, I think, why time management is such a big topic. And first of all is that inherently we know that time management is absolutely fundamental to every aspect of our business and our lives. I'm going to say that again because I think that's worth repeating. That time management is fundamental. In fact, it is the foundation upon which the other blocks of our business will be built. I can teach you and work with you on great customer service strategies. And if you never implement any of those good customer service strategies, your business isn't going to move forward. We can talk about business planning. We can talk about marketing. We can have a whole list of various marketing strategies for you to implement. And if you have not advanced your time management skills to a place where you get the important things done and move them forward, you'll never end up implementing the strategies that we've talked about, or you'll do them haphazardly, and you'll be inconsistent. And inconsistency is a really key piece, I think, that hurts a lot of entrepreneurs. And what we're really aiming for is consistency, congruency, so that people can trust that what you say you're going to do, you're going to do. And if you have missed some pieces in your time management, where if you commit to following up with somebody and it's weeks later, or in fact you forget and it never happens, what do you think that says about you? T. Harv Eker, the author of The Millionaire Mind, says this phrase: how you do anything is how you do everything. And that's why time management is that absolute key foundational piece. It also happens in your personal life as well. If you say you're going to phone your friends and you don't phone, pretty soon they're not going to count on you. If you've got a whole list of things that you want to get around your home and in fact you don't get around to doing them and there's chaos and clutter or all of that kind of stuff, that's going to affect you personally. So really key to this is that time management, I believe, is the foundation of everything, which is why I've really started my Google Hangouts with it, because it's really a key piece to that. And the other piece that goes hand in hand with understanding that time management is the foundation is that you want to understand why you're doing what you're doing. And what's the benefit for following through, for making those calls, for improving your business, to getting the results that you want. And then conversely, what's the cost if you don't? So right now I'm going to give you just a couple of seconds to think about this. Think of an area in your business where your lack of time management or your lack of skill in a particular area of time management is affecting your results. And I want you to just pause for a moment and ask yourself, what's the cost? It could be a direct financial cost. It could be an emotional cost. Just think of that. Have you uncovered one of those pieces for you? Because when you have, then that's going to motivate you to move forward. It's going to motivate you to do something different. So Kathy, you don't have to share with our listeners what yours is, but were you able to think of an area where maybe a piece of time management is affecting your bottom line in your business, or how you feel about your business?
Absolutely. I think as a solopreneur, there's so many different hats to be wearing, and without that time management piece, which I struggle with, quite frankly, and which is why I love to talk to you about it, it's without that piece, it's really hard to move forward in a profitable way.
Yeah, absolutely. And understanding that time management is really the foundation, then what that tells us is, we want to make sure that we put the horse before the cart. So in other words, in order to move your business forward, you're going to have to develop that skill set in time management. So today's episode is really a recap of the previous episodes. So I'm going to really encourage you, episodes 2 through 5, to go through and watch those and pick up some in more depth details of what we're going to talk about today. So one of the key things we started with was when we get things coming at us all the time, and especially it's digital today. So it's email. That's the thing that comes at us so often. So say yes if email is a challenge for you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it is. And it is for most of the clients that I deal with. So when we have this influx of information that comes at us, and again, the majority now people have opted for email, one of our most important things is to understand that just because something comes into our inbox doesn't mean we have to deal with it right then and there. What we're really doing when we first look at it, and when we set aside a specific amount of time to look at it, is what we're really going to do is process it. Because if not, what's going to happen is you're going to become overwhelmed with so much email and so much in your inbox, you're going to lose the priorities in there. So what I encourage you to do is to set aside a very short period of time, maybe even just 15 minutes, to go in, and your whole purpose is to process your emails at that point. And processing is just to decide, is it an actionable item or is it not an actionable item? So these are the two key pieces. So what I'm encouraging you to do is to look at this idea of processing your emails, which doesn't mean you're taking action on them, but just processing them. And then your next question is going to be, what is it? And this is a really key piece. What is it? And the question is it actionable to take action on it, or is it not? So it's a yes or a no answer to that. If it's a no answer, that means it goes to reference, it goes to your someday maybe file, or it goes to delete. And this is fast and quick. Yes, no, it's not actionable. Okay, bang, 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 bang. If it's actionable, that takes a little bit more time. And this is where you're going to ask yourself, is it an action or is it a project? And the distinction between actions and projects, according to my strategy, is a project is made up of multiple action steps. It can be quite complex or not that complex. It is not a single actionable item. So once you've determined yes or no in terms of is it an action or not an action, then you're going to say to yourself, is this part of a bigger project, or is it something that can be immediately actioned? So let's say it's part of a bigger project. You're going to drag that to a folder that you've created under that particular project. So Kathy, I know you and I have talked about this, is that let's say you have a particular tour that you're planning, and you've got some inquiries coming in from people, or you have some information that you're gathering about creating this amazing tour. Then what you're going to do is just drag that over to that folder. Now, a key piece here is in your calendar, you're going to have set aside a block of time when you're actually going to go and work on that project. It's not going to get forgotten in there. You know and you trust that you're actually going to have that in your calendar. And that's part of something that I call a time budget. And I'm going to recap that in a moment because we dealt with that on a previous episode as well. So you're making this decision, is it part of a project or is it actionable? And if it's actionable, then here's your question. Can I do it in less than 2 minutes? And do I have 2 minutes remaining in the time I've set aside to do it? So often, as you know, there can be a quick email back. You can, depending on how quickly you type, you can hammer those off. You can maybe do 6 or 7 of those in 30 seconds, that quick. If it's more than 2 minutes, you're either going to do one of two things. You're going to delegate it. Well, actually, it's a question for, is it something that you're supposed to do or someone else? So if you're going to delegate it, then you would do that. You would forward it to somebody, making sure that the subject line is really clear. So one of my rules is if the subject line needs to be changed, so it's specific about what it is, change the subject line. And in fact, even if you have something that you want by a certain date, you could put that in the subject line. That helps the person on the receiving end time manage. I also like to have in the subject line action requested or response requested, either of those two. So people know that they're expecting something back from you, or an FYI, which means they're not, or a read again, which is an FYI is they can read it or not read it. It doesn't really matter. You're just keeping them in the loop. Read is you do actually want them to read it, but there's no expectation of any response. I think we can limit the amount of email we have back and forth with each other if we just process some of these or use some of these processes and these protocols and set those up. Kathy, what do you think about those strategies in terms of limiting the amount of back and forth that sometimes we can have with email that can really be a huge time waster?
I think that one of the things that's helped me most from what you've been talking about is using the subject lines, because I know when you brought that up to me, I thought, wow, there's so many times when I've got multiple things happening in the same email, and when I go back to look for it later, I can't find it because I haven't used the correct subject line. So that has saved me so much time, just that one little step that you've implemented with me.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. And actually, you brought up a quick point, too, is that do the very best you can to put one subject per email. Because what that allows is someone to respond back in less than 2 minutes. If it's a long email, that actually ends up being something that I'm going to defer. I'm going to defer to my calendar to sometime later in that day or maybe tomorrow. So I'm not going to be able to respond back as quickly. And I don't know about you, but quite regularly when I get emails from people who've written, quite a number of things in it, I will miss one of the items. And then what ends up happening back is, well, did you see this? Oh, I didn't see that. And we're back and forth. So I really encourage you, for the people especially that you do so much emailing back and forth, just set up this protocol of being able to make sure it's one item per, making sure they put the subject line really clear, and making sure they know if there's a response requested from it, if it's just FYI or if it's read, then that makes it really simple. So you've moved these things from your inbox, and you've at least decided what's going to happen with them. The defer ones, which is what you're going to put into your calendar, is one of the most important things, because you're either going to write it into a list that you have, or you're actually going to put it in your calendar. Now, for those of you who still want to use paper, then then what you're going to have is you're going to have 2 books. And the 2 books that I like to have you have is, one of them is called a project book, and the other one is an action book. And an action book speaks of that. Everything in there you can do. You could put an action verb in front of that. And so when you're taking those things that you want to action, you're going to put them in that action book that you've deferred it maybe because later in the day you're going to do it, and you're going to prioritize those things. And then once you're done, this is when you're going to use your yellow highlighter to highlight out those items that you've actually completed. So if you've listened to my previous episodes, you know I like to have you set up a regular review. And one of the reviews that's key to this is at the end of every day to review what action items maybe haven't been captured, that have been still rolling around in your head. You're going to write them down. And then you're going to set your 3 priorities for the next day. So in other words, those are the first things you're going to do when you sit at your desk, that you're going to get those done. And then once those are done, you're going to yellow highlight those out, and then you're going to pick your next one that you're going to work on. And then once you're done that, you're going to yellow highlight it again, and then pick the next one. So that's how you use the action book. Now, if you want to be totally digital with this, then every single thing is going to go into your calendar, and you're going to have a task list in your digital world. My only concern about that is that it's so easy to have those get buried. And that spiral notebook with that. Those actions can sit on your desk and it's visually right there to remind you. You get a phone call that distracts you, you come back, what do I need to work on? You look at your book and immediately tells you what to be working on. The project book is where you're going to have your bigger projects that you're working on, and it's where you're going to maybe mind map some of those things. You know, you're visually going to draw them. You're going to put a bunch of action items in it. It's where you're going to be fleshing out the next action steps that you're going to be taking. Because sometimes with a project we don't know all the action steps. We might just know the next couple of them. So it's where you're going to go back to over and over and over again and add new things in there. So that's a book that's not going to look as pretty. It's going to be quite filled with doodling. You may put tabs if you've got pretty clear projects in them. You could put them in there. And so it's a place where you're going to go and you're going to doodle and you're going to brainstorm and you're going to bring out those ideas that are then going to be moved to your action steps. So Kathy, tell me what you think about that whole process and how much of that have you implemented so far?
Well, actually, after your first Google Hangout, when you were talking about this, I went and went back to the system because I actually had fallen off of using it. And so I've got my project book and I've got all the different tours lined up in the project book, but I went even so far as to add tabs for my personal things that I'm working on. So I've got everything in one place. And for me, which, you know, I have a very racy brain and I've got too many things usually going on, it's really helped. It's great. So thank you.
Great, excellent, fabulous. And I like your idea about the tabs even for personal and keeping it in one place. So hopefully our listeners might even take that on as well. So what we've sort of talked about so far is that, you know, time management is the foundation of everything. And what I want to encourage you to understand is that it's a journey, it's not a destination. Organization, time management, efficiency, productivity are all of those things that you're constantly going to be notching them up. You can always improve. You can always get better at things. So you're always going to be doing what I call evaluating and adjusting. So if we've got, and if you agree that time management is the foundation of an effective life and an effective business that's going to grow forward and make you money and have it be what you want it to be, then you do need to spend some time on time management. So we've talked about how it's foundational. We've talked about setting aside time to deal with all the stuff that comes at you, to be, especially the digital email, so you don't get buried in it, improving your subject lines to eliminate the amount of back and forths and confusions and all of that. We've covered off again the action books. So what I want to move on to now is, how do you decide at any given moment what to be working on? And I have a process that's a 5 criteria model, and I want to share that with you today. Again, we spent a whole episode on this, so I'm just going to touch on this today. But the most important thing is that when you decide what your goals are, so let's say in the next 3 months you have set some goals for your business. These are really important, and you know what they are. So first of all, you have to set aside some time to establish what those goals are. So next 90 days, what are your goals? The next thing you're going to do is you're going to ask yourself, do those goals fit in with my values and my vision? Are they in alignment with it? So these goals that I set, are they moving me towards what I've said my vision is? And if the answer is yes, then you've established that yes, these goals you've set are in alignment with your values and your vision. Then you're going to ask yourself, the next question is, okay, now this particular actionable item, or what, I've got this list from my action book of things, and how do I decide which are my top 3 priorities for tomorrow? The first question you're going to ask yourself is, do I have the right environment? Meaning, if you need to be on the internet and you're going to be somewhere where there's not Wi-Fi access, then that's going to determine what thing you're going to pick next to work on. So environment is a really important piece. If you're going to be driving in your car versus at your office, what are you able to do? What are you not able to do? So maybe there's some phone calls you can make using your hands free. So those become your priorities for first thing in the day versus something that's going to require you being at your desk. So environment's a key piece. So we've already covered 3 steps. One of them is you've got to establish your goals. The second one is you have to determine, are your goals in alignment with your vision and your values? And then now you're going to take those action items and you're going to say, do I have the right environment? So that's the first 3 steps. The next step is, how much time is it going to take? And I think this is a really key piece for time management, is for you to learn and discern whether you're a person that overestimates or underestimates, and or whether you're bang on. It can be either one. It's this continuum. And the reason I say that is that if chronically you underestimate the amount of time that it's going to take to do things, you're always going to be rushing, because you're going to struggle with having set aside enough time for it. So I'm going to encourage you to start tracking certain things and how much time they take, so then you can be much better at evaluating that. So let's say you have a particular action item. You're going to move a chapter in your book forward, or you're going to you're going to do a segment for a new product that you're creating, or you want to have a new offering for your clients, and you need to take some time to set aside for that. So you've assessed, this is going to take me 30 minutes. So part of the question is, at any given moment, do I have 30 minutes to work on this? Do I have the right environment, and do I have 30 minutes to work on it? So it's really important to be able to estimate how much time you've got and be really good at that. The next one is, so now we're into the fifth one, which is energy. How much energy do you have, and when's the best time for you to work on things? I know for some people, first thing in the morning, they're early risers, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and that's when they're doing their best creative work. Then that is not the time to be sifting through and processing your emails. This is a time for you to be doing that creative work. If at the end of the day you're energized from the work you've been working with your clients or whatever your business is, and that's the time when you can devote time to working on something that requires that higher level energy, then that's going to be later in the day. So that's going to be part of when's the right time to be working on that particular action item. And the last one then is priorities. So this is the last one. So this is 5. I think I might have given you the wrong number on energy. Energy was 4. So here's the next one, is what you want to do is you want to determine, what is this priority? When is it due? So if you have something that's due tomorrow versus something that's due the next week, which do you need to be working on? Something that is long-term planning, very important, may be trumped by a deadline that's due tomorrow. Now, I want to insert something right in here, is that it's really important that priority isn't always the only criteria. Because sometimes when we need to get more clients, or we've got clients interrupting us and asking us, and distracting us, is we'll chase after the client versus actually working on some long-term planning. So Kathy, tell me a little bit about this whole idea of using this model for determining what to work on. Any thoughts or questions around that for you?
I don't know so much about questions. I've really paid attention to that whole component from you, and I find for me it works really well, because a lot of what I do is deadline work. So I do have to really look at, when is it due? When do I have to have that back to a supplier? When is that client expecting? So having this model has really worked for me.
Great, excellent, good. So I really want to encourage you to be thinking about all of these pieces all the time when you're making your decision what to work on at any given time. And then the last piece that we dealt with on one of our more recent episodes was something called my time budget. And really that's taking a look at what your ideal week would look like. What are the components in that? What are the big rocks that you're working on that? And then what are the smaller pieces? Estimating how much time you're going to set up for client follow-up, customer care, making sales calls necessarily, actually doing the work of your business, strategic planning, setting aside those times, setting them out in chunks of time on a blank calendar page. So you've got the week in front of you, and deciding which are the best times for you to be doing things during this ideal week. And then what you're going to do is, once you've blocked off those times, you're going to kind of color code them. So when you're looking at your ideal week, you'll see, oh, okay, I've blocked this amount of time to be doing the work in my business. That's maybe dealing with clients or dealing directly with customers. Then you've got this time for planning. You've got this time for follow-up. You've got this time for personal. So this is your entire week. You as the entrepreneur, you're intertwined. This is where your personal and your business come together. This does 2 things. I have found that it's really helped people take a look and assess that they actually have more time than they think they do, which is terrific. And it also helps them adjust. So if something happens in a week, you know, on a Sunday when you're taking a look at your upcoming week and you know, gee, I've got a client that's coming in for the whole day that's going to take me out, then you know, well, then where I'm going to get this chunk, how am I going to move that around? How am I going to do the adjustments there? So you've got all those kind of pieces that you can kind of move around for your actual week, but you know your ideal week, how that's going to be set up. I know that for me, you know, Friday afternoons is my review time. So that's in there as a consistent block always. I know the times when I am actually coaching clients that work the best for me to be at my very best during that time. I know when I'm doing my planning and setting that out. So Kathy, share with me how that's worked for you, implementing that concept. Or if you have any questions about that.
I think, you know, how it's worked for me is that I tend to try and do things that I really enjoy doing more than the things that need to be done sometimes.
Really?
So actually, even going over this again this morning, it makes me realize that I need to be more consistent in actually blocking the time and make sure that I get the things done that aren't as fun. And that's, you know, it's a huge reminder for me. So I think that's the big takeaway for me today.
Great, good. And as we just come to wrapping up here with this Q&A and overview session, any other questions that you have for me, Kathy, that I could answer for you that could be questions that some of our listeners might have as well?
Well, I think that when you were talking about rescheduling things when something else comes up, that's something that I've struggled with a little bit because all of a sudden I've planned my week around what I think is my perfect week, and then, like you say, maybe a client's coming in unexpectedly out of town or an important call comes in. You know, I guess that's where I struggle a little bit is where when I have to switch things around, how do you do that without making a big mess of everything?
Great question. And I think that's pretty common for most of the people who are entrepreneurs, and so probably the people that are watching this as well. So that's where what you're going to do is you're going to go back to that ideal week, and you're going to say to yourself, okay, I have said that I've set aside this particular time because it's really important for me. So this happens to be the day when, let's say, you've got a client in from out of town or something's happening. Okay, so then when am I going to shift? Because it's as if you have a container of water, and you're not going to be able to take a glass like this and pour more water in it. What's going to happen is it's going to overflow. So in a week where you've got someone coming into town, then that may mean that you might have to work an extra hour a couple of afternoons to be able to do that. Or maybe you've put something in there that was maybe a someday maybe to take a look at, and you say, okay, well, because I hadn't planned for this, this obviously trumps it. So working on that someday maybe is going to get moved to the next week. So it's constantly, you know, part of time management is constantly, in any given moment, discerning what to be working on. So an ideal week, what I'm going to encourage you is to not hold on to that has to look like that. These are just the pieces that sometimes have to be moved around. And learning that part of good time management is having the flexibility along with the discernment to be working on the important things that are going to move your business forward.
Great.
Does that help, Kathy?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. So this is a wrap-up for today. Thank you, everyone, for watching it. Please give some feedback. Tell me what other stuff you'd like to have me cover on my Hangout with Coach Kerry. There is so much that I've learned in my 16 years of as a business coach that I could probably create episodes for the remaining years that I actually want to be coaching. So tell me what's a priority for you. Communicate with me, give me some feedback, and I look forward to hearing from you and getting your feedback on upcoming episodes. And don't hesitate to go back and watch some of the ones that maybe you'd missed if maybe today triggered them for you. So again, Mondays 9 a.m., that's our time for Hangout with Coach Kerry, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Kerry. Bye-bye.